325-1820. 855-325-1820. That's 855-325-1820. Have you ever met a single person in your life that enjoys paying taxes? No, no one does. If you can't sleep at night because you have a huge problem with the IRS, I've got some free advice for you. This service is strictly limited to individuals that owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes. And if you qualify, we can guarantee that you won't be writing a big fat check to the IRS, or our services cost you nothing. The first 100 people that call today will get a free tax consultation worth $500. Stop worrying about your IRS problem. We can help you, we promise. Call the tax doctor right now. I mean right now, to learn more. 800-240-4587. 800-240-4587. 800-240-4587. That's 800-240-4587.
Why have thousands of aspiring authors teamed up with Christian Faith Publishing to publish their book? Because Christian Faith Publishing is an author-friendly publisher who understands that your labor is more than just a book. We provide authors freedom and flexibility throughout the publishing process, professional book editing, award-winning design, and some of the highest royalty structures in the publishing industry. And as always, you will retain 100% of the rights to your book.
I was looking to find a company that I could trust, one that assisted in the editing process completely.
The most important qualities that I was looking for was a publisher who was honest and upfront, no hidden costs or fees, and owning the rights to my own work.
Christian Faith Publishing will publish, market, and sell your books in all major bookstores, online booksellers, as well as specialty Christian bookstores. Call for your free author submission kit.
800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. That's 800-978-4812.
Here's important new information from the Diabetes Solution Center for you, a family member, or a loved one suffering with diabetes. If you have lost your provider, or if you need a provider for diabetic supplies, you may qualify to receive your diabetic testing supplies now with little or no out-of-pocket cost, regardless of your age. All you need is Medicare or private insurance to be potentially eligible. Call the Diabetes Solution Center right now for details. Just takes a couple of minutes. Our friendly, knowledgeable agents will give you free, no-obligation information, handle all the insurance paperwork, and make sure your supplies are delivered directly to your door for free.
Call U.S. Medical Supply 24 hours a day. 800-597-9323. 800-597-9323. 800-597-9323. Call right now. 800-597-9323.
Good morning. Happy Monday morning to you. Coming all the way from the Dominican Republic. It's me, Adam Smith, and Martin joining you, like I said, all the way from the Dominican Republic on this sunny Monday morning. We're going to be talking health and wellness, fat loss, muscle building, toning up, and everything else in between. There's some 6 vital topics of discussion this morning. I wanted to nice cup of coffee you got this morning. I hope that's just coffee on this Monday morning that we're going to be covering this morning, ranging from nutrition to how to hit the gym properly, but a big part of today's discussion and something that we've been kind of itching to get into a little bit deeper is the mindset aspect of things as well. So we want to sort of set you up for the week to make sure that not only can you stick to this week right, but obviously as this is the beginning of a new month, that you stick to the month as well as you can, and you follow through on all your goals, whether you're just starting out on your health journey or you've been on it for a little while, or you're resetting your New Year's resolutions because we're basically halfway through the year now. Whatever that is for you, I wanted to make sure that we're covering all of the bases. So we'll kind of just dive straight into it. So the first topic of discussion this morning is one of my favorite things to talk about with a lot of people is when it comes to your health and wellness journey, or your fat loss journey, or whatever that is, whatever you're trying to accomplish, is that most people believe that it has to be exciting, that every single meal needs to be groundbreaking, or every single workout needs to be this astonishingly different or exciting workout. But I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Sometimes it's just about doing the boring stuff, because the boring stuff gives you the results that you want. And Martin and I are proof when it comes to this. It's just doing the repeatable boring stuff, because the boring stuff works all the time. And especially when it comes to your nutrition, especially, you have to find out what works for you. And if that is, okay, just preparing large amounts of protein, preparing large amounts of carbohydrate, and eating the same thing through the week, then that's just what you have to do. Not every single meal needs to be like these fancy things you see on TikTok, or these fancy things you see on Instagram. It just has to fit your lifestyle, and you have to make sure that you can maintain it. Martin, do you have anything to talk on with that?
Make it boring.
Yeah.
It's a grind, it's a daily grind that we go through. And, boring is easy. That's the thing. You don't have to think about it. There's a thing that's true called decision fatigue. And if you're looking at the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, who have made billions and billions of dollars, and he doesn't even make wardrobe choices. He's got 25 of the same jumper because he doesn't want to even think about the clothes that he's wearing. And, this is one of the reasons why I work out in the morning, because I know that by the end of the day, when I've got to make a choice of, am I going to go to the gym or not? I've got to make a choice of, am I going to attend this social event, or am I going to go to the gym? My willpower is much weakened because I've made all these decisions through the day. Am I going to eat the chicken and rice, or am I going to give in and go to the restaurant with my family? The chance of me giving in is so much higher on the day, because I genuinely have decision fatigue. So I get all my productive stuff done in the morning, and I don't think about it. I've spoken about it before. I made a list of what my morning routine is. So I don't make a decision. I just follow a set list. We have pretty much have our workouts planned out and written out. I have a set nutrition plan that I follow. I don't make a decision of what I'm eating on Thursday at 12 o'clock. It's a structured plan that I follow, and I take all my decision making out of it, and I follow a set structured blueprint that is going to bring me the results that I'm looking for. And, boring is good. It's a grind. And yes, maybe there is some people that do need some flashy things, and they do need things of interest. And maybe that's you specifically that is going to bring you success, that is going to bring you results. And so, you need to find what's going to work for you. And if interesting, flashy, visually appealing is something that's going to help you reach your goals, then yes, throw it in, make it work. For me, it isn't. I need boring, beige Pyrex dishes in a freezer. That's what's going to bring me results. Fine was going to work for you, but the less decisions, the better. The more structured, the better. The more planned in advance, the better.
Yeah, and this brings me to another really important point, right? And I bring this up with my clients all the time, is 99% of the people that I work with, or 99% of the people that I help, even people that are in my free Facebook Facebook group, they don't need more information, right? Like, we have so much information fed to us through TikTok, Instagram, all this kind of stuff. We know that we need to eat in a calorie deficit. We know that we need to get our 10,000 steps, and we know that we need to drink enough water. But what we need is a simple plan, or a simple thing to follow every single day, but something that we can repeat every single day. And this is where most people fall off track, is there's so much information all the time that we get bombarded with all of it. And then we try and make it way more complicated than it needs to be. And then it becomes overwhelming. So not only now are you trying to manage this new nutrition plan, this new workout plan, and that you keep adding things to, but you're also trying to manage your life, your job, your family, your kids, the dog, the car, all this other kind of stuff. And then this is where people fall off track, because if they're trying to balance life and then they're trying to balance trying to get healthy or trying to stay on track with that, the first thing that goes out the window is their own health or their diet or their workout, right? Because it's too complicated. So if you can make it beige and if you can make it boring, then you're going to stick to it for longer. And this is why I believe most people have success, because it is just something simple they can stick to, and they can do it while they travel, they can do it while they're on the road, they can do it while they go on holiday, because it's just, air quotes, boring, and they can do it all the time. So when it comes,
time is one of our most valuable commodities, and this is why we need, even if you are going to do the interesting, flashy, visually appealing foods, etc., when you have time, amazing, but you absolutely need to have these fast, basic things in place, because we don't always have time, and the majority of time we're not going to have time. And so we do need to have all these in place. And then, yes, when you have time, make those fancy meals, great. But the majority of time when we don't, what are you going to do? We need to have all this basic stuff in place. And then you also need to know what you're going to do when you really don't have time. On the day when I don't even have time to eat my meal prep, when I'm forced to run out of the office and I'm going to be out of the office for 8 hours, what am I going to do in that situation? I also need a backup plan for when I don't even have time to eat my prepared meals. You know, I need to have a plan in place for everything. And the other side, what you're just talking about, all the contradictory information, you know, as we spoke about, the only plan that's truly going to work is one that we stick to. And so we can only know it's going to work when we stick to it for a sufficient length of time to judge the results. And so this program hopping of, I'm going to try this for 3 weeks, didn't work. Try the new one, didn't work. Try the new one, didn't work. We don't know if it didn't work. We didn't give it enough time. And then if it does work, why then try the new latest fad? If this is working, let it work. You know, I know what works for me. You know, I just do a simple push-pull legs routine with the basic strong exercises. I eat basic foods, you know, probably have 6 different meals in a basic calorie deficit, and that puts me into cover model magazine physique. So why would I then go and use some fancy diet just because? No, all this basic stuff absolutely works for me. Stick to it. We don't then need to go into these, just try the latest fad for what? You know, and then if you don't want to go down the road, and we don't need to go down the road of finding all this out. This is the exact reason why we have people like Adam, because he already knows what's worked. Save yourself years of investigation and research and follow the advice of somebody who really knows what they're doing. And then it is going to be unique to you. You know, even Adam isn't going to know exactly what's going to work for you, and he's going to try different approaches and find the specific thing that's going to work best for your body type. But in a very short period of time, is going to figure out what works.
Well, the other thing with this, right, is, you know, you, Juan, and I were having a discussion the other day, is just because we can do everything doesn't mean we should do everything, right? This is exactly when it comes to the diet side of things. You know, there's every kind of diet out there at the moment, everything from the carnivore diet to the lemon detox diet to whatever the case is. But it doesn't mean you need to try everything, right? It doesn't mean you have to give everything a go. If we have the information that you can eat carbohydrates and still lose weight, you can still have dessert and lose weight. You just track your macros, understand you have to eat in a calorie deficit, and you can still enjoy the weekend with your friends and family and still do these kind of things. You don't need to go to these extremes and diet hop or program hop all the time. If you can find something that's sustainable for you and you can still get the results that you want, then just stick with that. You don't have to like punish yourself. And this is what I see time and time again, is where people, especially when it comes to the ladies that I work with or ladies that I've worked with in the past, where they see the diet exercise side of things as more punishment more than anything, right? So they believe that they have to punish their body, or they have to kind of hate their body into a body that they love, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So if they find something that they love, they believe that it can't be this easy. Why is it this easy? It shouldn't have been this easy the whole time, right? this kind of like light bulb moment goes off of like, oh shit, the marketing companies have been lying to me this entire time, and it could have just been this easy from the beginning. And then they get frustrated and be like, damn it, I've wasted all of this time program hopping, diet hopping, wasted all this money on shake weights and diet pills and everything else, where I could have just eaten bread and enjoyed the ice cream and then stayed in calorie deficit and lost weight and had the body of my dreams. But this is unfortunately what happens. Yeah.
You've hit the nail on the head with some really strong keywords which I believe should be in there. If you're going to have a successful longevity here, sustainable, enjoyable, you throw that in there with diet, sustainable, enjoyable, longevity. These words should be in there if you're in a diet phase. The extreme discipline dieting, it does have a time and a place, and it is not at the beginning of your journey. If you're looking at, the phase before a bodybuilder goes on a show, that's taken that person years and years of building their discipline muscle to be able to get to that stage, do it for a very short period of time without breaking their whole life, right? And at the beginning when we're doing it, it has to be sustainable and enjoyable without a doubt. And then as you build up this muscle called discipline and you get better and better at it, then yes, at some point you can do a little extreme period of discipline dieting and come back without breaking your whole life and without saying, F it, I'm never dieting again. And if you do it at the beginning phase, you're never going to come back to the gym or diet again, and you're going to put all the weight back on and it's going to be useless. So that will come. Trust me, if you want to do that, that will come. Just don't do it at the beginning.
Yeah, and this is one of the biggest things that a lot of people have to come to terms with when it comes to food, is how much of an emotional anchor food has for people, right? So much like alcohol and drugs and sex and everything else, food does have an emotional hold on us. But because it's such a bigger part of our lives, like we can't just cut out food cold turkey. We still have to eat, right? So it still has this emotional anchor. And for a lot of people that I worked with in the past, as we go through the process of learning how to diet properly and cutting out certain food groups, I often have clients that have, let's say, relapses where they will fall off their diet plan or like binge over the weekend. And a big part of the discussion when we talk about like, okay, why did you do this, is coming to terms with the, let's say, like the emotional side of eating, right? And when they get into understanding that, they start to have this emotional attachment because either they had a shitty day at work, or they had a fight with their partner, or they had a fight with their kid, or they had an angry email, and they turn to food for that emotional release. As soon as they have that light bulb moment, what it does is they start to take back power away from food. So as soon as food loses their control, what they do is they then start to have more control over their diet. So then food loses all control over them, and they want to be more disciplined. And then they start to see food more as fuel. And what naturally starts to happen is they start to want to take care of their body more, right? So they start to eat for more purpose. So then they're not wanting to, they don't crave the donuts anymore. They don't want to eat the chocolate late at night anymore, because they are understanding that by them fueling their body better, they're waking up better and feeling better about themselves the next day. They don't have those negative thoughts anymore. They're getting to the gym with more energy. They're getting through the day with more energy. And what that does is it's the self-fulfilling philosophy, right? So by them feeling better, they're eating better, they're just naturally falling almost in alignment with a better version of themselves. So they're not wanting that shitty food. But the flip side is also true. As soon as they start to eat poorly, then they don't go to the gym, then they don't go to bed on time, they don't do their journaling, and then they eat poorly because they feel bad about themselves, right? So it's the snake eating the snake's tail. So the emotional side of food is really, really true. And if I can give any sort of piece of advice to anyone, if you're trying to break this cycle, stop looking for happiness in the same place you're losing it, right? If you're if you're upset with yourself because you keep breaking your diet, or if you keep eating the junk food, it's the junk food that's leading you down this path all the time. That shitty feeling that you feel about yourself is because you're leaning into that food. It's the emotional high that you're getting from the donut. And this is then in turn starting those negative thoughts. That's then in turn making you want to eat the donut again. So instead, put down the donut, go for a walk, focus on your future self, the self that you're trying to build. Go and focus on that stuff versus turning towards the junk food. And trust me, over time, you'll become more in alignment with that future version of yourself, and then start to eventually get away from the emotional attachment you have towards food. You got anything on that, Martin?
Yeah, I mean, these are very short-term cravings. I mean, it's literally, it'll envelop you for 5 to 10 minutes. It will be an all-consuming feeling. It happens to me all the time now, and I give in sometimes. If you have that moment of stress, that moment of, it's a massive surge of energy, of emotions, and if you can just recognize it as that, as energy, it comes, it will envelop you, you'll feel it, and it will manifest itself in some way. That maybe you'll want to have an outburst of anger, maybe you'll want to have a drink of alcohol, maybe you'll want to eat a bar of chocolate or a bag of crisps, potato chips, and it's all the same thing. And this is your way of dealing with these internal emotions, which is literally just a surge of energy. And if you can just recognize it for what it is, instead of just identifying with it and saying, this is me, I am these emotions, because it's not. You can disassociate and you can separate from them and observe them and become a witness and say, I'm watching these emotions and say, wow, look at all this anger, look at all this sadness, look at all this stress, instead of saying, I am stressed, I am angry. There's a lot of techniques that you can do with this, the cognitive behavioral therapy, meditation, anger management, all this stuff, which is heavily linked to all this food and alcohol stuff.
Yeah.
Just start witnessing it. This is a technique for everybody watching now, that the next time you feel any emotion, whether it's positive or negative, just witness it, feel it, look at it, witness it, and then there's a space between emotion and action, and we have a choice on how we behave. And a lot of people don't, because you identify it, you say, I am angry, there's no filter, I speak angrily. I am stressed, I eat chocolate when I'm stressed. No. And it's just, when you can start recognizing it and you say, wow, there is stress in my body, I take a moment. How am I going to deal with this? How am I going to act? I have a choice. Let me just sit here for a minute and deal with it. 5 minutes later, wow, it went away. I didn't eat chocolate this time. Oh, that means that in the future, I don't actually have to eat chocolate every time I feel stressed. You can start breaking these lifelong habits, these lifelong associations, and saying, people say, this is just the way I am. I get stressed, I drink alcohol, I get stressed, I eat chocolate, I shout at people, whatever your manifestation of that trauma is. And it doesn't take long to disassociate and start acting in a different manner, and just taking that space between the emotion, creating a filter, and start witnessing it instead of just automatically acting on it. And yes, it's a very rewarding process doing that, and basically just taking control and ownership of our lives and our emotions, and saying, yeah, you're never going to stop feeling it. It's super important. I'm always going to feel anger. I'm always going to feel sadness. I'm always going to feel negative and positive emotions. And of course I want to, a lot of the time, but I do want to have a control and an option over my actions. And I don't always want to act on anger and sadness, etc. And the moment I start doing it, it almost becomes this game of life where I start acting instead of reacting. And I can really start choosing the person that I am in this life, which includes all the food choices I make.
Yeah, this is a huge part of it, right? Is making decisions, like making active decisions and not reacting, right? And I think this is where most people fall off with all aspects of their health journey is they live in a state of reaction and not action, right?
Yeah.
Because they're living in, let's say, like the red zone. So if we're talking like analogies of a car, for example, or analogies of, let's say, like a glass essentially almost spilling over every single day because they're stressed with life, with their kids, with their husband, with work, all this kind of stuff. So now they're wanting to get healthy, they're wanting to get fit, they're wanting to lose the weight, and they know that they should be, or they could be, or they have this itch internally, and they make that one decision or that one step forward. And as they do, then the universe tests them, or the life tests them, or the devil tests them to see how bad what they want is really what they want. And then that thing sort of throws them off track, where they forget their workout clothes at home, or they drop their prepared lunch in the break room, or whatever the case is, or the kid's sick, and that just throws them straight back into their old habits, the old ways of doing things, right? And they stay back into that cycle. So it becomes like almost impossible for them to break out of their old version of themselves to want to be the new version of themselves. And this is where they get frustrated, or they get sort of stuck in this constant cycle of every day being exactly the same, even though they're wanting to break out, because they're stuck in these habits and these standards. This is where I think most people, and then we're leading into the second topic I wanted to talk about this morning, was people waiting for this motivation, right? And waiting for this like click or this puzzle piece to fall into place. One of the things that I think most people misunderstand when it comes to motivation is motivation, I'm sure you've all heard it before, doesn't exist at all. So you might feel inspired in the moment. You might feel like a jolt of lightning, or like this feeling of frustration, or this feeling of like being sick and tired of where you're at. One of the best ways for me to help change the way that you see this in your mind is that you don't lack motivation. What you lack is systems. So if you don't have like this inspiration to get out of bed every single morning, the way that we can help change this for you is by you having proper systems in place, which then help you start to bridge the gap from where you are to where you want to be. Now, this doesn't mean we have to flip your entire life upside down, but what you can start to do is by slowly changing little things in your day-to-day, what you then can start to do is essentially start to change the direction of the boat that you're on to then head towards a new direction. So this can be simple things like changing the way that you go to bed on time, starting to change the way that you get up in the morning, even the way that you get out of bed in the morning, or the way that you brush your teeth in the morning. The reason why this is super powerful is because if you start to do things in a different way, your body has to, your body and your brain has to essentially be more present. And by you being more present, what you're doing is almost resetting your software, right? So you've been on autopilot doing things in a certain way for so many years or so many months, your brain and your subconscious is kind of just taken over. So you've been on autopilot. So you're waiting for this motivation to come from somewhere, and your motivation is not going to come from doing the same day in and day out. But by you wanting to be a new person, you have to realign with the person you're trying to become. So how would that person act, right? We have to bridge the gap from where you're at right now to where you want to be. So by slowly, incrementally putting those habits in place and those standards in place every single day, and we slowly bridge the gap and build that little bridge from where you are right now to where you want to be, we then start to build towards that person every single day. So we're going to keep talking about that as we go for commercial break, and then we'll jump into some other topics as we come back, talking about nutrition, talking about your mindset, and talking about building the better version of you, building the 10.0 version of you. And we'll see you in about 2 minutes time.
You on the other side.
Let's be honest. Wheelchairs are heavy, bulky, and ugly. If you carry a wheelchair in your car to take care of a loved one, you know how hard it is getting that clunky, old-style wheelchair in and out of your car. Introducing the Feather Chair Wheelchair. At 13 pounds, it's the world's lightest wheelchair. It folds in seconds and fits neatly in your trunk, backseat, or closet, so you can take it everywhere. And it's only available right here. Order yours today and get a free wheelchair case, a $50 value, yours free. The Feather Chair. The world's lightest wheelchair is just $4.99 with easy payments as low as $16 a month. Sorry, no Medicare or insurance accepted. So call right now to order yours.
800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. That's 800-823-5826.
If you are trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet. I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581.
Good morning. Welcome back to our chat this morning about making sure not only you're staying on track with your nutrition and your training, but also with your habits and your standards as you slowly build yourself from the version you are today to the version that you want to be when it comes to your weight loss, when it comes to your healthier, best version of yourself, whether you're trying to lose 100 pounds, 50 pounds, or just lift heavier things and put them down again, whatever you're trying to do, whatever your goal is. Before we left on that little mini break, we were talking about motivation. We're talking about staying on course when it comes to your mindset. Like I was saying, one of the biggest things that a lot of people struggle with is staying motivated. For me and for a lot of the clients, and what's worked for a lot of the ladies that I work with is as soon as motivation starts to dwindle, or let's say like the inspiration to want to get out of bed in the morning starts to dwindle, the things that quickly get me back on track and then the ladies that I train back on track is just realigning with the goals, right? Realigning why you started this journey in the first place, especially if you are trying to lose like 100 pounds or 50 pounds. That can seem like quite a long journey. But remember, at the end of the day, yes, it's amazing to lose that weight for yourself, but sometimes you're not doing it for yourself. Sometimes you're doing it for your kids. Sometimes you're doing it for your husband or your partner. Sometimes you're doing it because you want to see your grandkids grow up. Sometimes you're doing it because you want to see your daughter or your son on their wedding day. If you start to take yourself out of the equation and you start to remember that you're doing this because you want to set a good example for the people that are around you, you want to show up as the best version of yourself for them, then that little spark can get you back on track. That little spark will take your ego out of it and get you back into the gym, get you back into the kitchen, making sure you're meal prepping, get your head back in the game when it comes to making sure you're not doing that late night snacking, making sure that you're sticking to your nutrition plan. Martin, what's your spark when it comes to when you start to lose motivation or you start to fall off track?
Yeah, definitely doing it for others. You know, for a long time, I couldn't do it for myself, right? It wasn't enough. Maybe I didn't have enough self-love at that time. I kept trying to do it and it just wasn't strong enough. And putting the goals in for others, especially if you have loved ones around you, care about you, if you have kids, is always a big, strong motivator. You know, if you have a partner, parents, the people to make you proud of. And showing other people as well. You know, a big one for me, like in my real estate career, when I started getting a lot better at it and it started taking off, is when I had new agents come on under me, and then I had to show them how to do it. And you know, I went and showed them in a professional manner. And you know, really, so I went and taught them and I showed them really professionally, and we're printing out all the sheets and had everything planned out, and you know, I went through in such a professional way. And at the end of it, I said, "Hey, I don't do this when I take my clients." And then I was like, okay, you know, I'm willing to do this for others in this manner. And then obviously I need to do it for myself in this way. And it comes back to that thing of like, treat yourself as if you were somebody that you loved. And, you know, same as in the health and fitness, if you were to sit down and say, you know, if I was to take my sister who was overweight and say, what would I do for her? If I really loved her and I wanted her to do well in health and fitness, write it down and say, what would I get her to do? You know what I mean? And then say, why aren't I doing that? You know, would I hire her a personal trainer? Would I get her to wake up early? Would I get her to prepare her meals? How many times a week would I get her to go to the gym? I need to be doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's probably one of the best quotes that anyone can sort of write down or take away from today's conversation for sure. Is treat yourself like you love yourself, really. Like and put
yourself as if you were treat yourself like you were somebody that you loved.
All right, so I want to leave you with not leave you, but I want to give you some game plan sort of tips and tricks to put into practice when you are struggling with the motivation side of things. So if the motivation side of things is a struggle, then lean more into your systems, right? So if you have systems in place, systems are essentially something you can fall back onto when motivation sucks. So with all of my clients, I tell them to at least have one anchor meal a day. So when it comes to your anchor meal, this is a meal that you know it's going to be the same meal every single day. You know your calories for it, you know your macros for it. It doesn't take a long time to prepare, or you've prepared it already, so you've meal prepped for it. This means that it's inside the fridge or the freezer. You take it out, you put it in the microwave. It's super simple. For example, one of my clients, Liz, what she used to do was the Kodak waffles, and then 2 things of non-fat Greek yogurt, individual servings. She could just grab those and then take them to work in the morning. She knew the macros for it. She knew it had protein. She didn't have to think about it because she had 2 kids. She was a school teacher, running a household, all that kind of stuff. And it was just something that she knew that she could just take to work. And even if she just got that meal in, for her, that was starting the day off with a win, right? Which meant mentally she was already in the game. Then have a non-negotiable training slot for you either in the day or scheduled in for your weeks, right? Or for the week. So for example's sake, Martin and I train every single morning at 6:30 a.m. That's a non-negotiable for us. So we make sure we hit the gym at that time every single day. If you have these non-negotiable training periods slotted into your day throughout the week, whether that's every single day, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, whatever it is, that means that is dedicated time for you and for your training. This means that it's time for you. This means that your husband or your partner or your work, your colleague, whatever, they know that that's where you're going to be. You're going to be at the gym, you're going to be working out in the living room, whatever. That's time for you to make sure you get your training done. This also means that you're promising yourself that you're going to go and work out. Make sure you hold your word to yourself and you get it done. Then the last one is make sure you have a nightly habit. right? So this can be some journaling before you go to bed. This means you can have a bedtime routine, have a like cold shower, hot shower, whatever. Make sure you have a nightly habit. Just start stacking these wins every single day, and you have these systems in place. Not only is it obviously going to help you lead into better habits with regards to helping with your weight loss, making sure you're moving towards a better version of yourself, but it's going to help you stack your wins mentally. And as you start to stack these wins every single day, you're going to naturally want to put on a couple more extra wins throughout the day, because you're going to start to feel proud about yourself. And then you're going to start to see this stuff snowball. This stuff will then start to snowball into other areas of your life. And before you know it, you're not just going to be stacking one day, but then you're going to start to stack the week together, then the month together. And before you know it, you're going to be a different person. All right. Anything on that, Mon?
Yeah. Do you have trouble sleeping at night? One of the best ways to get a good night's sleep is to set the fixed wake-up time in the morning. And if you set the fixed wake-up time in the morning and you get up at that time, no matter what time you go to bed, in a very short period of time, you will be falling asleep at night. So, I'm up at 4:15 every morning. And, I've been doing this for years now. But at the beginning, sometimes I'd be going to sleep at 12, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I still got up at 4:15. And trust me, if you're going to sleep at 1 a.m. and waking up at 4:15, no matter what, it isn't long until you start going to bed earlier. Believe me. Yes, it will hurt. Yes, you'll be exhausted. And yes, it will be pain and suffering. But that's the whole point. You will be exhausted. Fatigue is the best pillow. It ain't going to take many days of you going to bed late and still getting up at that time until you'll be going to bed early. Trust me. So, you don't have to, again, all of this, my advice is do not go extreme. If you currently wake up at 8:15, just wake up at 8. Don't start waking up at 5 a.m. Like, you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot. It's going to be unmanageable. You're going to burn out too quickly. You wake up at 8:15, just wake up at 8 for a week. Next week, if you're feeling good, wake up at 7:30. Just roll the clock back slowly. But just make it just a little bit uncomfortable. The whole point of this is facing discomfort, creating more time, creating routines that are good for us. And one thing I wanted to touch on that Adam talked about before is this idea of, running around in a whirlwind all the time. The analogy I like using is the Tasmanian devil. If you're literally waking up at the last minute anyway, and you're sleeping through your alarm, so now you wake up, you're in a world of chaos, you're already late, you're literally waking up, you're this Tasmanian devil, everything's chaos, you're in a whirlwind, you run out into the world, and you are just reacting to life. You're already stressed, and there's just situation after situation waiting for you, and you just go like this, bang, and the first situation hits you, and you just react stressfully, and you just go through the day just reacting stressfully to everything. And if you can pull back and take just a little bit of time in the morning, you don't have to do this 5-hour routine, but just take 15 minutes and just take a little bit of quiet time and use that time to say to yourself, who am I going to be today? I'm going to take, what is the character I'm going to play? What are my values? How am I going to act? I'm not going to react today. I'm going to act today. I'm going to act in a certain manner. And when the stressful situation appears, and when the person's rude to me, and when somebody clips into my car lightly, I'm not just going to react chaotically and start screaming and shouting. I already know those situations are going to appear, and I already know the person I am, and I already know the way I'm going to act, and I already know that when I get stressed, I'm not just going to drink and eat chocolate. I already know I'm going to sit there for 5 minutes, let it pass, and I'm going to follow my meal plan. And, this is literally a life changer, to move from reacting to life chaotically to acting in the manner that I choose to obtain the results that I'm looking for.
Yeah, this is huge, because it actually leads us into the last topic I wanted to talk about today. And this is raising your standards, right? So raise your standards and raise your results. So you don't get your goals, you get your minimum standards. And this is something huge for a lot of people to understand. is if you want to increase your quality of life, not just with your health or your fitness, but with any area of life, you have to raise your standards. So a great way to think about this is, what is your standard, or what is your real standard when no one's watching? Do you skip your workouts, or do you go less hard with your workouts? Do you late night snack when there's no one around, like when the kids go to bed? Do you like go to the pantry and start snacking? Do you slack off when no one's there, right? Like, what do you hold yourself to? Because we are rewarded in public for what we do in private, right? One of the hardest things for people to come to terms with is everything in life that we have is our own fault, the good or the bad, right? So when it comes to your standards, when it comes to your health, your identity, when it comes to your health, and when it comes to your fitness, especially, and when it comes to your weight, it is your fault, no one else's. You ate the donut, you drank the heavily sugared coffee, if you want to call it that. It's only your fault. So now, for you to get yourself out of this situation, you have to become a new person. And with this, you have to raise your standards. Now, a big part of this is changing your self-image, right? Because your self-image is going to drive new behavior. A big part of the way that I work with the women I work with is we do this, let's call it project, where I get them to imagine the 10.0 version of themselves. So I want them to design a superhero version of themselves. Essentially, like if they were going to design a female James Bond character of themselves, like what would they dress like? How would they look? How would they smell? What car would they drive? What would they wear? How would they walk? How would they talk? As if they were going to pitch me in a movie, what would that character look like? Who would they be? How would they look like, right? And then we build them into that person. So it's not just about eating more chicken breast and doing some more squats. It's how do you act every single day in accordance with being that person? Because most people that I see when they're trying to lose weight, they just focus on the number on the scale. They don't focus on changing their identity. The people that I see succeed the most on their health journey, they lose the weight and their internal identity changes as well. The people that I see that fail, they lose the weight, but their internal identity doesn't match the number on the scale, doesn't catch up. So then they end up gaining that weight back. So my one piece of advice with anyone that's listening, as you lose the weight, you have to upgrade your identity as well. You've got to throw out the old fat clothes. You need to upgrade your level of thinking. You need to let go of any old habits or standards. You need to upgrade your identity, whether this means getting a new haircut, changing your hair color, changing your car, whatever it is, but you have to upgrade your habits, your standards, your identity as you lose the weight. Again, with the ladies I work with, I tell them to throw out their fat clothes, get rid of the old clothes, their old jeans, the stuff that they're not going to go back to. Because if you don't do this, it is super easy and super simple for you to fall back into those old habits and those old standards. So just make sure that as you go through this process, that you're not only upgrading in regards to your external, your nutrition, your training, losing the weight on the scale, but you're upgrading your identity as well. Martin, you got anything on that?
Yeah. Why the majority of lottery winners go broke? You know, I heard it said if you gave, $1 million to a load of people who are currently have bad spending habits, let's say, a year from now, they wouldn't have any money. And, if you magically made slim a lot of people who have bad eating habits, let's say, a year from now, they would be overweight again. And it isn't just the gaining of a lot of money or the losing of a lot of weight. It's the identity shift, it's the building of new habits, the gaining of a new character along the way. And it's not only the changing of it. I've heard it said, which I do believe to be true, is that when you get to the end of that journey where you've lost 30 pounds, 50 pounds, and you've completely changed your physique and your identity and stuff, that actually becomes the prize. Yes, you've got the physical result, but that wasn't actually the prize. It is genuinely who you've become along the way. This new, disciplined, more confident, happier, full of energy, positive, all these changes that have happened is actually the real reward. And when you get there and then you look at the new life that you've been given, the new lease of life, and all these other things that it's positively affected in your life, that is actually the true reward over the number on the scale. Yes, that's amazing and it's a great positive, but it's not actually the true prize that it is, which is super, super cool.
Yeah, 100%. So, like I said, you raise or you fall to your standards and not your goals. One of the best things you can do is get some Post-it notes, for example, and then start to change your habits just by simple phrases, right? So something like, I'm the kind of person who, for example, I track my meals every single day, or I train 5 days a week, or I get up at 5 a.m., or I go to bed at 9 p.m. Slowly reprogramming your mind is very, very powerful. Believe it or not, we are going to be programmed whether you are conscious of it or not, right? So you might as well start to be the captain of your own ship and start to program yourself every single day. So program yourself with the things that you want to achieve, the things that are in alignment with the person that you want to become. Raise your standards.
So something on that. A good saying, a good quote that I heard is, we don't rise to the strength of our goals. We fall to the strength of our systems and routines. And life always comes in waves. Even us now, with 15 years doing this, we'll go through a really, really good wave of having a massive push. And then both of us at the same time, pretty much, we'll go for a really bad wave where we can't put that much effort in. And so when you go through a good wave of being able to put in a lot of effort, we need to build as many systems and routines as possible with the stuff like the fixed wake-up time, all the morning routine, with the things that are non-negotiables, the going to the gym at a specific time, the meal plans, all this stuff that's fixed, is non-negotiable. Build as many systems and routines as you can, because the bad wave is coming. No matter who you are, no matter how disciplined you are, there's going to be a time where you just do not want to be here. You do not want to get up in the morning. Everything is hard. And if you don't have these systems and routines in place, that bad wave is going to be the catalyst for you to stop completely. And, if you do stop completely, you might never come back. It might be 5 years until you get back into this lifestyle again. But if you have all these systems and routines in place where you have a fixed wake-up time, a morning routine, you go to the gym 5 days a week, you've got a meal plan laid out, and you feel like crap and you don't want to do it, but you just follow the systems and routines. Yes, you do it half-heartedly. Yes, you don't put as much effort in. Yes, you don't want to be here and you just give it the minimum effort, but you do it. This will drag you through this period of minimum effort where you don't want to be there, and you will get through it and you won't fall off track. And it'll drag you through this time of not wanting to be there until the good wave comes again. And then when it comes again, you made it through and you didn't fall off track and you're still in this life, and the massive push comes and you're rolling again. You've got more systems and routines in place. But it's such an important thing of, on the good run, implement more systems, more routines, because that's the only thing that is going to allow you to get through the bad wave, because it is coming.
And I think this sort of comes full circle with what we were talking about at the beginning, right? So the quicker you can subscribe to being okay with boring and repetitive and mundane, and the quicker that you can take your emotions and your feelings out of it, and you just like almost turn off your feelings when it comes to the boring and the mundane, what you learn is that if you can attach to that, when you don't have the motivation and you don't feel like doing it, do you just attach to the mundane and you drag your ass through it? You kind of go into that autopilot mode of like, fuck, I don't feel like doing it. I don't feel like going to the gym, but I have these systems in place. And I know Martin's going to be at the gym and I have to go and do it. So I'm just going to go and do it. And I know I'm not going to put 100% in, but it's going to keep me in the flow of doing it, right? And the worst thing, I think, for almost everyone, whether you're seasoned in the game of like training or lifting or fitness or health, sport, whatever, the worst thing for anyone is losing momentum. Because if you lose momentum, it takes so much longer to get back into it. So if you're just starting off your journey, whether you are getting into running or getting into sport or getting into losing weight, hitting the gym, whatever, once you have momentum, just keep momentum. Even if that means dragging your ass to the gym, even if that means not feeling like meal prep, but just doing it anyway, just keep the momentum. Even if you're just pushing forward a little bit every single day, keep going a little bit every single day, because if you lose that momentum, it is so much harder to get it again. So having systems in place where you just fall back on your systems, or you fall back on your friend that you train with, or a coach that you train with, or whatever, so you can kind of just turn off a little bit and you can just go through the systems and go through the motions every single day until, as Martin says, until that good wave hits again, and you get the momentum and you get that motivation again, and then you can sort of keep driving, and then you can put more systems in place and you can push a little bit harder again. Those essentially those systems will save you from falling off track completely or losing yourself completely, and then losing all sights of your goals completely and starting from square one essentially again. So
every time I had 100 weeks off, it started with one. Just keep, even if it's super light, just keep doing something, keep some movement, don't let it go.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is it from us this morning. I hope you all are going to have a brilliant Monday and a brilliant week. A brilliant start to the year. I can't believe it's June already. Damn. All right. Stay on track. Don't lose momentum. Put some systems in place, and we'll see you next Monday. Same place, same channel. Peace out.
Good week. We'll be rolling. Good stuff.
From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godley, this is the voice of Johnson County, Joco Community